If you could have a coach help you identify and focus on what's important, would that accelerate your success? If you answered yes, then this podcast is for you. Each week, my guests, professional coaches, will share one actionable piece of advice to help you level up wherever you need it most. My name is Chris Ippolito, and welcome to the Get Coached podcast. Hi, Nick.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for being a host and welcome, or not a host, a guest, and welcome to the Get Coached podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. So we'll just jump right in, and one of the coolest things that I learned about you is one of the tools that you use. So let me preface this a little bit real quick. One of the most common pieces of advice from coaches, and actually one of the most popular self-development or personal growth books, is Think and Grow Rich, meaning your success will come from the way you think, and whether that's you have to change it, or and in a lot of people's case you do have to change it, but before you can really change anything, you kind of need to know how you think, right? And which leads me to the really cool tool and assessment that you have access to, which is called MindScan. So I was wondering if you could expand on what MindScan is and the value that it can deliver to people.
Yeah, sure. I'm super passionate about this overall. I mean, the MindScan tool is so effective, but as you said, it starts with awareness because we just don't know what we don't know. That I was saying, and if you want to elicit change from yourself, you have to understand why we do the things we do, and it comes from thoughts,
Right.
and it comes from defining what is thinking. How do we think? And it's kind of similar to primary colors. There's three primary colors, but there's three primary ways we think. And the MindScan tool, which we own at ProAdvisor Coach, is a tool that was actually designed by a guy called Dr. Robert Hartman, way back originally from Germany. He fled Germany, moved to the States, and lived a bit of time in England as well, and kind of dedicated his life to the study of formal axiology, which is the mathematical value of what is good and thinking about thinking. And that's when he defined that and said that there's three primary ways we think. There's intrinsic, extrinsic, and systematic. And they're mathematical terms, and we call it the relator, the doer, and the thinker. Because we have around like 45,000 to 65,000 thoughts every day. And 80% of those are the same. And what would you guess out of the 80% are negative or positive?
I'm going to assume that of that 80%, probably somewhere close to like a large majority. So I'm going to say like 75 to 80% are probably more on the negative side, whereas the remaining portion's positive. And I think that's part of it is because of the way our society is, especially nowadays. I don't know if that was such the case maybe back in the day when there wasn't so much information being bombarded to us, but that's my guess.
Yeah, I think some studies have said it's up to 95%.
95, that's crazy.
And if we're not aware of those thoughts that are going in, that are loaded into our mind every day, then we can't do anything about them. And so I think for me, the mind scan is so powerful because that's what it does. It allows us to start thinking about our thinking and understand what we tend to do, or what are our go-tos, how does it show up for us, and then from that place, then we can start to move forward, as you say, to adjust it to what we actually want.
Right. So step one, so for you and when you're working with a client, step one really is using that MindScan tool to get a snapshot of how that person is currently thinking, because it's obviously not static or fixed. Our way of thinking evolves through life, as we grow and develop and mature, but also it could be affected by your circumstances, right? If somebody's going through something a little bit more of a negative experience, that might impact their way of thinking, and you're saying that'll show up in the MindScan.
It does. You can think of it like an MRI of your mind, like a snapshot in time, and it's often reflective of what you're doing right now in your life. If you're going through a big change, there's certain areas that's going to show up on. If you're in a place where you feel really comfortable, uh, then that's going to show up as well. If you're in a place where you're frustrated, then that's going to show up as well. And it allows you to kind of get ahead a little bit and able to, you think of them like different levels, because we've got those three ways of thinking, and then we've got the internal version of that and the external version of that. So there's 6 different areas to look at.
Mm.
And if nothing else, it's just a way to say, okay, well, that might be an issue for you. How does it show up? This is how we've seen it show up, and we've run thousands of these things, and so we can see the patterns that open and the type of profiles that kind of pull together, and so it becomes super powerful. Yeah, and awareness. This is a big tool for creating that awareness. But absolutely, first things first, when working with clients, whether it's individuals looking to just put their life together and life performance in different parts of their life, or it's working on their business, or it's working towards a new career, or if it's business owners that are working with teams. The first things first is to understand where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Understand where you are, and this is a key component of that for sure.
Yeah, there's that saying, when somebody asks you, how long will it take to get to destination? And everybody starts throwing out, oh, it'll take 3 hours, 4 hours. And it's like, but how do you know when you don't know where you began? Right. So it's kind of the same idea. Unless you know where you're starting, it's going to be very difficult to figure out that path of where you want to go. And that's where this MindScan tool comes into play. Is it's just really, like I said, giving you that snapshot of where your thinking is currently versus perhaps where you maybe want it to go. But then again, you were saying yesterday when we went through mine, and there'll be a YouTube exclusive episode of us going through my MindScan assessment, which was really fun. And thanks, Nick, for doing that. But you were saying that shoot, I lost my train of thought there. But you were saying that it was basically like some people, oh, that's what it was. Some people are actually happy. Like when they take that assessment, they're like, oh, I'm good with all this, right? Like, whereas me yesterday, I was a little bit hard on myself. But then again, that actually showed up on my MindScan that I'm going to be a little hard on myself. So, a question for you. I think I want to know where, like, for yourself, because obviously as a coach who's helping people shift the way they think, what's something that you've done yourself personally to help shape the way you're thinking and get it more on track where you wanted it to be?
I think it's a great question, and it's actually coming up a lot at the moment with clients and in my own life about, it really just comes down to identity. And because and Tony Robbins says the greatest, the most powerful part of the human personality is the need to stay consistent with who we think we are. And so the common example of that is to, if someone's stopping smoking versus someone who's stopped smoking, if someone asks that person, do they want a cigarette, and they say, I'm trying to quit, versus if someone says, do you want a cigarette, and they say, no, I don't smoke, I'm a non-smoker.
I'm not a smoker.
Yeah, it's a different identity. And I think that understanding what identity it is that you want, because you think about anyone around us, people that we respect, mentors, or people in the limelight, people that you can see, and if you think about who they might be, like if you see someone who's a top sports star, for instance, like why do we give them that identity? It's because we've been seeing them playing sport at a high level, and we've seen them do the things that person with that identity has. And so we can start to reverse engineer that and say, so for me, it was like, well, who do I want to be? And I think back to my corporate career, and it was definitely good to me, and I learned a lot of stuff along the way, but it wasn't something I wasn't so passionately attached to. I knew that I wanted to get to that point, and I started to think about, well, who do I want to be? What do I want to show up in my life?
Right.
And you can start to design that as almost a declaration to yourself. And it's not about ego. It's just deciding who you want to be and then moving towards it. Because if you have, so the same way of defining where you are, you've also got to define where you want to go. And for me, it was about starting to put that into place in a vision type exercise, because you're not going to know exactly, but then defining what type of things would that person do,
Mm-hmm.
and then do those things. Because and to go back to the mind scan, the most important thing for me, a reminder of, is that ultimately the mind scan is going to show up how the mind scan shows up based on where your thinking is now. But to remind ourselves that probably one of the greatest gifts that we have as humans is the fact we have choice.
Yeah.
And we get to exercise that whenever we want.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the beliefs that we have and language that we use tend to cover up that choice and allow us to let ourselves off the hook with knowing that we have that available. So for me, it's about, okay, deciding where I want to go, and then starting to put together, well, what will that person do? And then doing those things, I'm moving towards that identity.
Right. So what would be some practical steps that you've taken to do that? So was it um journaling, or was I guess, what did the exercise look like when you were sitting down and determining the identity that you wanted to create for yourself when you were transitioning from corporate world to, where you're at now?
Yeah, and this is where I get really excited, because for me it was like exploratory along the way. And I didn't know I was doing it. And when I look back on it now, it's so obvious. It's like these are the steps I went through, even though at the time I didn't feel like it. So it's creating, where do you want to go? Okay, well, for me it was like, well, I want to get out of working in corporate. I want to be in charge of my own time, in the fact that I want to do the things every day and put myself on the line. Start getting value for value, meaning putting value out there, helping other people, and then getting value back. It could be in terms of dollars, it could be in terms of fulfillment, rather than trading money, time for money. So that was kind of my vision overall. And then it was like, well, what are going to be some milestones on the way to that identity, or on the way to that vision, right? And so it could be taking certain certifications, it could be moving locations which fits better within that, and other things within the family. So bigger activities I could tick off as milestones, or I could see as the next step. Because the other thing, of course, with when you're talking about a vision, is sometimes it can feel so far away, something like a dream. So if you start to create what that road looks like, and you can have stops along the way, or just points where you can just stand there for a second and say, "Oh wow, look what I did." And then the third level down. So there's the vision and the milestones. And then the third level down is a little bit what, as you were alluding to, Chris, was it's what can I do immediately? What are the daily processes and rituals that I can design within my life that are going to put me in the best mindset in order to execute against the milestones and therefore the vision? So
That's awesome.
absolutely, journaling is a great one.
Yeah.
Meditation is a great one, of course. And it's almost a cliche a little bit now, especially with, if you're in this world, everyone's talking about meditation and journaling, and because it's valuable, it really is, and it works a little bit different for everyone, and the one that's best is just the one that you'll do. But for me, the biggest thing is exercise. If I remember having as I shared with you, we have a 3-year-old. We were living in New York at the time, and I can almost remember exactly the moment where I realized that, because I used to do all my workouts like martial arts or lifting weights in the evening primarily for all of my adult life. And there was a moment that I realized, it's like, I'm done with the evening workouts. I just can't do them anymore. I'm gonna have to go back to 5 a.m. wake ups and training in the morning, because otherwise it's just not gonna happen. Yeah, and it just has to be. And I knew it was a necessity for me to do something, and so yeah, it came that for me is I know if I don't work out in the morning, that the chance of having a good day, or the day that I want to have, is much less possible.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your workout look like right now?
So this morning my workout looked like doing something called TMAC Fitness, which is just a 20-minute online workout, which is high intensity training, which was really handy for me, especially when Waverley was really young, to be able to just fit that in 20 minutes in the garage in the morning. And then this morning I followed that with a bunch of pull-ups And there's a couple of things to say to that as well, because where we are right now, the beginning of the year, I've got someone a guy in my neighbourhood where I'm training with, so I can get accountability from him. We've got a Q1 approach to our training we're putting together. So there's all these little tips and tricks to pull to make it even more, like the levers you can pull again to make it even more powerful. So that's what it looked like for me this morning. But I tend to think about it in different layers, because it can be, most people want to work on their health. So it's such an easy example to talk about, because everyone wants to do more and look after themselves. Everyone knows intellectually how important that is, of course. And sometimes it can be, well, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. And if this comes from someone who doesn't do that at all, maybe is a one-time, every couple of weeks kind of person, or doesn't have a gym membership, I know immediately when they say that as a goal that they're not going to do it.
Right.
It's just to say, I know already you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
They're setting themselves up for failure, because they've gone, it's like you're going to the extreme, right? It's a lot of people make that mistake, and it's like, why not just go once a week to start forming the habit and getting in the routine? But a lot of people make that mistake. Yeah. Sure.
Exactly. Keep it small. So I'd even go even further than that and say, okay, if you're doing nothing right now, a good intention might be just to get to the gym twice a week. Just get there, just put your training stuff on and get to the gym, and with no expectations for when you get there.
Yeah, I would even go even more minutia than that, as and I heard this on a different podcast, was so to develop the routine, let's say it's getting up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym, is you get up, you walk out your door with your gym bag, and that's considered like success. And you just do that consistently, and there's actually a book on the whole subject called Micro Habits, I think. And the idea being that you set the bar so low that it's almost ridiculously, it's just so easy to accomplish that it's almost impossible to fail. But then once you've taken that step out the door, you're going to go, well, I'm already here, I might as well like take one more step, and then you just keep going.
That's right. It's absolutely, it's fascinating though, right? It's how we intellectualize things. And I find that such a dangerous thing. If you feel like that you know something intellectually, it's so easy to dismiss it. Yes, I know that makes sense. Yes, I know about that. I know how to eat, or I know how to exercise. And if once you do that, you just go, I know, so I already know. But of course, the knowing is not in the intellectually knowing, it's the action, and that's the difference. And so I like to think about as different levels of morning routines.
Right.
So if my number one or most effective morning routine is to have, say, 5 a.m. or 5:15 is normally my time alarm, and then I'm going to journal, then I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to lift, I'm going to spend some time in the sauna, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the meditation as soon as I get, actually sometimes in the car, and then when I get back, first thing I do is plan the day, and then action against one task. That would be my foundation of a fantastic start to the day morning routine. If I can't get to that for whatever reason, I have an early client commitment or a family commitment, then it doesn't mean that I won't do anything. So I have a second layer and even a third layer version of it. It's like my minimum effective dose. So I can still do something in order to prep for the day, even if I know I haven't got an hour or 2 hours. If I've got 15 minutes, I've got a version of that.
What does that look like? What's the second layer and the third layer? Like if there was one only, and maybe this will be kind of how we wrap up the episode. And it's been great because, as I had mentioned to you, and really the whole idea with each and every one of the Get Coached episodes is to, at the end, we want to have one actionable piece of advice for the audience, such that when they apply it, they're going to start seeing positive results as long as they stick with it. So I'm curious, like, what's that one morning routine thing that you do that really primes you to have that successful day?
Yeah. So for me, if I've only got 15 minutes, whatever the time is that's small, I can do a workout in 5 minutes. For me, the physical moving of my body is the most important thing.
Right.
And so that's going to look like, say, 25 push-ups, 50 air squats, and there might be some small yoga movements. That's going to be it. That's my minimum effective dose. I know that that's going to be enough to get a little bit of sweat going, certainly get a little bit of a pump going,
Yeah.
and from that point, I'm alert. That's my minimum effective dose. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a coach out there, Jim Quick. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
The mind coach.
Yeah.
He talks about, he says, and it's a common phrase, but as the body grooves, the mind moves, or something like that. Or no, as the body moves, the mind grooves. That's what it is. So on the topic of changing the way you think, getting your body going first thing in the morning will actually like almost like kickstart your brain. I actually try and do, for me, it's not try, but my minimum is 10 push-ups.
Okay.
Right. And I can do a lot more than 10, but
Sure.
it's, for me, the benchmark is as long as I've done 10 push-ups in the morning, that's a check mark on a success for the day. If I can do a lot more, which is meditation, journal, all those other things, kind of like you're saying, it's great, but my minimum is just 10 push-ups. And I think that's a good one. I think if anybody out there who's listening is not already incorporating physical activities into their morning routine, uh, there's no reason why not. And even starting as simple as a single push-up, if you've never done any and you're not already doing, do one push-up, one air squat, and stretch for like 30 seconds,
Yeah.
and you're done. And then you just keep doing that every day, and just slowly increase those numbers, and you'll start seeing the positive results for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're always trying to tighten up a feedback loop. Ultimately, that's what it's about. It's us as humans, because we're driven by emotions. We're driven by our values and beliefs, some of which we don't even know. Back to the awareness point again. And you could find yourself in a place where you don't want to be emotionally, which then is going to impact your actions, which is then going to impact your results.
Yeah.
You could be in that place for a long time, like days, weeks, months, years, before you go, wow, why am I even here? So the quicker you can keep that feedback loop, or the tighter you can keep it, the more progress you're going to make.
Yeah.
Because it's just about taking action, getting results, reviewing the results, taking more action, moving on. And by moving your body in the morning, you allow yourself to be in a resourceful state to ask yourself those questions. And so, like, for you, it might be 10. For me, it might be 25. The number's arbitrary. It doesn't really matter.
That's right.
As soon as you can feel in a resourceful place, wham, you're ready to go.
Yeah. Usually for me, like as soon as I drop down and I get to that number 10, I'm like, I know I can do 10 more at least. Right. And then I do 10 more. And then I'm like, let's see what my personal record is going to be this morning. And then I've done it a couple times where I get up to 30 or whatever it is. And it feels good once you form that habit. But I literally started with 10, and I knew I could, and 10 was easy, but it was just, like you said, it's taking the action and forming the habit. So that was awesome. I think that's great. Nick, where can people find you if they want to get in contact and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, thanks. So they can get in contact with me just by email. You can see us on ProAdvisorCoach.com. Please go there to see ProAdvisor Coach, or get me at nick@ProAdvisorCoach.com for my email address, or on LinkedIn, Nicholas Davies on LinkedIn. You can definitely see me on there. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn for sure.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to include that in the show notes and the description of the video on YouTube. So
yeah,
it'll be nice and easy for them to find you.
Yeah, and we wanted to share complimentary access of the MindScan if the listeners are involved, are interested as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. And where could they find that?
So we put together a landing page for anyone who's interested in doing that, and it's only going to be available for a certain amount of time. But that's going to be www.proadvisorcoach.com/get coached.
Awesome. I would highly recommend it. I really enjoyed even just the light assessment that gets emailed out. And then if you want to learn more, Nick will follow up with anybody who does it and take you through kind of the more in-depth assessment.
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Nick.
What a pleasure. Thank you very much, Chris.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Get Coached podcast. If you're looking for more information, you can head over to our website, which is getcoachedpodcast.com. You'll find the show notes for this and every other episode there. And if getting actionable advice every week from professional coaches is something you want more of, then make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.